When you see someone's foot kick a guy in the nuts, everybody does the same thing. Ooh.
Yeah.
If you can touch someone's heart and then their brain, you are able to move them to take action. My ads always told a story. In 30 seconds, I told an entire love story through M&Ms. Everyone in the room went like this.
It's almost like a Mr. Beast kind of thing. You've been doing advertising for like 40, almost 50 years at this point, which is incredible, starting at 13.
Danny, I've never sold shit to anyone, but all I've done is create an emotion that makes them want the thing that they're looking at.
You've worked with all these major companies. You've generated billions of dollars in sales.
In the branding, advertising, and marketing space, I am the guy that is a fixer. If someone tells you they are an expert in AI, tell them bullshit. Not even Sam Altman is an expert in AI.
What is your message to the audience? What do you want to tell people, the home service owners or the agency owners or the brand experts? What do you want to tell them? What do you think they need to know?
Okay, here it is.
Hey there, my name's Danny Liebrand, and welcome back to Local Marketing Secrets. Today I'm joined by Ken Moskowitz, a branding veteran with over 40 years of experience. Ken has worked with some of the world's most recognizable brands, including Coca-Cola, ESPN, the NFL, Facebook, and Budweiser. He's also deeply involved in the home service world, holding equity in 7 home service businesses and helping thousands of others build stronger and more memorable brands. If you want to understand how to build a brand people remember, trust, and choose, even in a crowded market, Ken is one of the best people to learn from. The same strategy he used for billion-dollar companies can help any local business dominate its market, and I really can't wait for doing this episode. So now, without further ado, Ken, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Danny. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. So I met you at the Swarm Mastermind in Tucson. This was just less than a week ago. You gave a presentation that was mind-blowing. I think I'll want to cover that a little bit later in the show.
Sure.
But you gave a mind-blowing presentation, an hour and a half of how to create copy and ads using AI. And that was kind of my first introduction to you. Was absolutely blown away. I was like, this guy is a total genius. Need to learn more about him. Need to have him on the podcast. And I just want to know, like, with all the stuff that you've done so far, you've worked with all these major companies, you've generated billions of dollars in sales. Where did it first start for you?
In my bedroom when I was a teenager. I was a nerd, man, like real nerd. Growing up in New York, all of my family would go to the beach on the weekends, and I didn't want to go to the beach. The beach was boring for me. They'd go to Rockaway or Jones Beach, and I'd be like, I want to sit in my bedroom and make commercials. Now, when I say make commercials, I got to zoom out from that, Danny. I was a kid that grew up listening to New York radio because my parents listened to it in the car. And their music was terrible. Like, oh, God, Elvis. And it was just awful. As a kid, it was painful to listen to. But what I loved about listening to the radio was the magic of the DJs. And when they would go to a commercial break, I was fascinated that somebody could say something on the radio and it would convince people to want to buy that thing. And I don't know why. That's, like I said, I'm super nerdy, not a normal kid thing, right? Most kids are out playing tag with their friends or with their Matchbox cars or doing whatever. I really got into ads and I thought it was really cool. So I spent my formidable years writing ads for fun. Something was definitely wrong with me.
And where did that lead to? Like, take me a little bit further down the journey.
Sure. That led to me actually creating a recording studio in my bedroom. And the story behind the recording studio is, it's not fascinating to me, but every time I share it with people, they're like, wow, that says a lot about your wiring. And I'll just give you the backstory because it is kind of interesting from an outsider's perspective. When I was a kid, I had a loft bed, and on top of the loft wasn't my bed. I slept underneath it. On top of the loft was all of my equipment, but I didn't have a full production studio. And so, as any Jewish New York kid growing up goes through, I was bar mitzvahed. And at my bar mitzvah, as I walked into the bathroom, my uncle Jaime Kalinsky, does not get any more Jewish than that, comes in behind me and he goes, Kenny, and he slaps me in the face. He goes, this, and he has an envelope. This is for you. And he opens up my jacket and slips it in my inside pocket of my jacket, kind of like a mafia thing, right? Can you write, hey, this is your money. It was the funniest thing. At the time, I had no idea what was in the envelope. I kind of suspected it was a gift, but he said to me, he goes, the parents know about the box, the one in the box. This one's for you. Do whatever you want with it. I'm like, cool. Well, he had provided enough funding for me to go to Crazy Eddie's and the Wiz, the two big electronic stores in New York at the time, and buy the rest of the equipment I needed to create a full production studio. So at 13 years of age, I had reel-to-reel recorders with editing capabilities. I had dual cassette decks. I had turntables, mixers, microphones. Just like, this has been a staple in my life since I was 12, but I got a good one when I was 13. And then over the years, just increased the quality, right? I started writing ads and producing them and creating mixtapes of ads, and then engineering or reverse engineering why they were effective. Like, why would a company, and I didn't realize the economics of it, right? As a kid, I'm not thinking, well, a company spent money to have this ad run. I just was like, wow, this thing is running, talking about something, and people go buy the thing. Like, why? Well, as a kid, the economics of that business didn't even cross my mind. It was just purely the fascination of the messaging. Fast forward a couple of months later, after all this equipment's in place, I'm at Buddy's Schwinn Bike Shop. It's a shop that doesn't exist anymore. For those of you who are watching this podcast or listening, who grew up in New York, it was on Casino Boulevard and Union Turnpike, like a block away from the White Castle. And Buddy said to me, hey, Moskowitz, you're pretty good at writing ads. Could you write something for this local paper? It was not the New York Times or Daily News. It was some piece of crap local paper. I don't even remember what it was. Like the Village Voice, maybe. I don't remember. But I wrote an ad for the bike shop, and that ad worked well and drove new customers in. And so the next time he was able to buy an ad, it was in New York Newsday, and I wrote another ad for him. And so my first paid advertising gig was like, I was 13 years old. And it was the coolest thing that I got paid to write words about bikes. And they made people come into the store. And I'm like, that's really cool. I was able to do that. Now, I didn't know the mechanism behind it. I didn't understand the psychology behind it, but I had been studying all of these ads. And again, I was not a normal kid. My parents will tell you, it was just something in my DNA. And so that was really the start of my advertising journey. And it only grew from there.
Yeah. Wow. That is incredible. And it's almost like a Mr. Beast kind of thing, right? I just feel like he was destined to do YouTube. He's been doing it since he was like 10 years old or maybe 13 like you. And now you've been doing advertising for like 40, almost 50 years at this point, which is incredible, starting at 13. So now I wanted to touch on this. You've worked with a lot of major brands. I wanted to ask you, who was the first major brand that you worked with, and what was that like?
The first major brand? It was probably, it was Coca-Cola. They had launched their Coca-Cola's Red Hot Summer campaign, and it was not really well thought out. It kind of sucked the way they did it. And considering that they're a big company and have a lot of money, you'd think that they would have had that dialed in, and it just kind of sucked. And so I wasn't working with them at the time. At the time, I was actually a creative director at a radio station. And when I was talking to the team, their marketing team, I said, hey, this is the way I would do it, and here's why. And I repositioned it, and they were like, wow, this is really great. And so my first real taste of big brand stuff was with Coca-Cola. And it was only because I put myself out there and had no fear of saying, your stuff is stupid. Like, this is the way I would do it. Now, of course, I had no street cred, nor did I have the experience that their marketing team had, but I had an instinct. And instinct has served me well and truly, if it wasn't for my instinct, I don't think I would have gotten where I am and would have touched all the products and brands that I have over the decades.
So what more specifically, what were you doing with your ads that the previous ads weren't?
My ads always told a story.
Mm.
And so, when I zoom out and look at, and okay, this is the Spanky Crap. By the way, my nickname's Spanky. You didn't actually tell anybody that. Spanky Craps on digital. He's doing air quotes, marketers for those listening. Everyone likes to sell with pipelines and funnels and all of these tactics to get people in the funnel, in the web, whatever. I just like to tell stories that create an emotional connection. If you can touch someone's heart and then their brain, you are able to move them to take action. I don't need a funnel. I don't need a pipeline. I need to create an emotional connection. And so all of my messaging, I shouldn't say all, that's a real stretch. 95% of my messaging is about emotion. It's about creating connection. It's about telling a story in a way that moves people to action. And I'll give you an example of that. And it was actually in a public service announcement series that happened many, many years ago. Shortly after I moved from New York to Phoenix, I knew the Phoenix fire captain, and Fire Chief Bob Kahn was the fire chief at the time. And Phoenix has more pools per capita than any other state. And there was a huge uptick in the number of childhood drownings. And they were trying to figure out how to mitigate this, right? Because one of the challenges is some of the pools had fences, some of them didn't. The laws changed and eventually pools got, there's more safety and security. But at that time, kids were dying. Every summer there were drowning calls. And so I had the idea and I went to Phoenix Fire and I said, hey, those 911 calls, those are all public domain, right? Yes. Could I have access to those calls, please? And I got those calls. And it was gut-wrenching listening to those calls, but that was where I had the light bulb moment. I'm going to create a campaign that taps into the raw emotion of what these parents experienced. And so the campaign was called 2 Seconds is Too Long. It's still running today, by the way, decades later. And what the campaign tapped into was a message of taking your eyes off of kids around water, even for 2 seconds, is too long, right? But to get that message drilled into people's skulls, it starts off with just a simple VO. 2 seconds is too long. And then I roll into the panicked parent on 911 tape screaming, my child, they can't breathe. They're blue. I found them in the bottom of the pool. And these are gut-wrenching, like heart-wrenching cries from moms and dads. And you hear people screaming in the background as they're trying to resuscitate a young kid, a baby. It's brutal. And then there was a little PSA reminder at the end. And these were 30-second long ads, so they were just painful to listen to. Well, that was the first time I had death threats. And oh yeah, people were upset. I literally, people were calling news channels. They were calling TV stations, any radio outlet that was running them. They were angry. And so I was interviewed by one of the news stations. They're like, why did you make these things? I'm like, because I wanted to create an emotional connection that would get people to do something so kids stop drowning, right? Mm-hmm. You have to create emotional connection, an emotional impact to move the needle. And it did. And so I had a lot of hate. A lot of people were upset. But everyone who knew the mission and knew my purpose for this supported it. Not one station pulled the messaging. It got even more airtime because of all the hate. So it was amplified. It became the lead story on several local news stations because it was so graphic, so dramatic, and it was just audio. And so things like that, really, it's the emotion. It's telling a story in a way that people don't forget it. And that's what I love to do with my ads.
Wow. That even emotionally hit me, you just telling the story right there. And by the way, I love that to explain storytelling, you told a story about a story that you had. I love it. And you're such a great storyteller. I recognize that when you were giving your speech too, that immediately you started with how you were going through cancer, and that was really tough. Could you tell that story too? Like, what was that like going through cancer recently?
Oh, it sucked. I would highly recommend not going through any kind of cancer treatment, but unless you need to. It was not a great experience in life, but I think one that really gave me an opportunity. And I always look for the golden nugget in the thing, right? And I'll share a little bit of that story as well. I had a business, I still have that business, but I had a business that was being impacted by the invention of AI. And when AI started to really hit the market in January, February 2023, this business started seeing negative impact where our monthly recurring revenue was dropping. And so this went from a multi-million-dollar business, and it was slowly just bleeding off monthly recurring. So by March of 23, we had lost like 20% of our top line revenue. I'm like, interesting. And by the way, everyone who was canceling said, hey, you guys are amazing, but this AI thing is pretty okay, right? Pretty okay replaced amazing because the cost differential was enormous. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So I started this pivot. Gary Vaynerchuk and I are friendly. We had a conversation. He's like, Spanky, you got to pivot. You got to do this now because AI is here to stay. And, and OpenAI was really the only one that anyone knew about. And so I started the pivot. And then I got diagnosed with stage 3 rectal cancer. And when you get a diagnosis like that, you just stop caring about everything else, right? The only thing you focus on at that point is surviving. And so I went into survival mode. I said, screw the business, don't care. I've got other things, revenue is going to be fine. It'll be a couple of weeks and I'll be back to it. When I say a couple of weeks, I didn't know it was stage 3 at the time. It was diagnosed as late stage 1, early stage 2. It was only when they got inside during surgery that they had discovered it was stage 3. So my entire treatment journey and plan changed in the operating room. And so I woke up July 5th, the day of my surgery, and at that point thinking 12 weeks from now, I'm going to be back to normal. And that wasn't the case. 5 weeks after surgery, I started months of chemo, then radiation, and then I had surgeries to reverse all the work that they did. And so it was a full year of my life that I lost. But that year was critical to me because what I did, and as I said when I spoke at the event, I decided to do what Julia Roberts did in that movie, Sleeping with the Enemy. I decided to become a practitioner of every AI tool I could get my hands on and find out how to kill this thing, how to beat it, not kill it and stop it, like how to really utilize this thing to make a killing and have this tool become an asset rather than the enemy that destroyed a business, right? Because you always have the opportunity to take a negative position or a positive position. Everyone leans into negativity. Oh, this sucks. What am I going to do? Life sucks, right? You're sitting in a traffic jam. The first thing people do is complain. I sit in a traffic jam and I'm like, oh, I got more time to listen to that podcast, right? And now because I'm nerdy and I have a full self-driving car, it's even more relaxing. I can just sit there and the car's going to do the thing and I can absorb and listen fully. Anyway, I think people tend to lean into negative. I tend to lean into positive. And so I use that time to my advantage to really become a practitioner. And if a new tool came out, I bought it or paid for a monthly subscription. If something changed, went away, I would just pivot to the next thing. And so I'm always pivoting and moving, and have throughout my career, throughout my life in the industry. I'm always moving to where things are. And I think a lot of people get stuck in nostalgia and all the bullshit of remember when, oh, life was so good back then. No, it wasn't. It's great now.
Yeah.
Right. But you got to lean into what makes it great. And so that's what I did is I pivoted, figured out how AI could benefit me, could benefit my businesses across all the businesses, and then started implementing and creating tools to do the work that was the heavy lift.
I love that optimistic mentality. I'm the same way. It's always glass half full. Gotta see the bright side. And I want to ask you because it seems like, I mean, technically AI has been around for decades, but now it's really the hot topic. Especially ChatGPT came out just around 3 years ago at this point. Started out with copywriting, then image generation. Now it's kind of short form video. Now it seems like eventually people are going to just generate whole movies. Let's start with copywriting, because I know this is also a really strong skill set of yours. How do you write good copy with AI?
So you have to train AI to, especially if you have a style, you have to train AI to write like you. I have a depth of knowledge and years and years of advertising. Like literally, I'm going to pull this so you can see it. I have dozens and dozens of notebooks like this with all of my, and so those of you listening, not watching, I have Oxford notebooks, the composition notebooks that are like the black and white notebooks that you had when you were a kid, literally filled with ads, ideas, scripts, storyboards that I have written throughout my career. I still go old school, pen to paper when I'm working through something, but having that and having all of the ads that I've done and produced and worked on and scripted and storied, I was able to give AI a vast amount of here's how I write. Now, don't do these things. Don't write like this person. Here's what I want you to learn and understand. So my AI tools have a really deep knowledge of how I write. Like if I were to go into my specific project in Claude, I can tell it to write anything and it will write and sound like it was coming out of my mouth. Now, most people, when they train an AI, they get lazy. And what they do is they give it one or two things. Like, oh, here's a great example of the way I wrote this email. And I'll just use that as an example. Or here's the way I wrote this thing. It's not enough contextual information for the AI to understand your writing style. And so for me, one of the things I did, aside from loading up a bunch of ads that I did, is I wrote a book. And so I said, here's my book. I want you to take everything from Jab Till It Hurts and understand my writing style. And Jab Till It Hurts was a book. And I asked Gary Vee for permission on this. So Jab, 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 Right Hook is his book about give, ask, right? How you build your business. Mine was Jab Till It Hurts, which talks about how I built a multi-million-dollar business following Gary's, ideas and principles. And so I actually mentioned it on the cover, I thank him for it, got his permission. I'm like, Gary, I just out of respect, before I title the book this way, I felt like it was important. It's really an homage to his knowledge and experience in marketing. I thought it was brilliant. So I added that to the knowledge file. You have to give it a lot of shit. Don't be lazy when you're trying to train your AI. Give it an abundance of information. And that's how you get an AI to do your work the right way.
Okay, cool. Something also I found interesting. I know a lot of people will just use ChatGPT, but you're using all different LLMs and for different purposes. So what's kind of your strategy there?
So I find that different tools do a better job at some things and different tools do a better job at others, right? So ChatGPT is an all around, I call it the general purpose. It's a general practitioner, right? It's like your primary care doctor. It does a little of this. It can give you a shot. It can do all the things, but it's not a specialist. Claude is great at writing and code. I use Claude to write. Claude is still today, and I test other tools regularly. Today, as of the recording of this podcast, still the strongest writer out there as far as writing tools go. whether you've trained it on your style or other styles, it is still the strongest. When I was going through treatment, my team was struggling because clients would come and say, "Hey, we want something, a project, we want Spanky to work on it." He can't. He's going through treatment. And my team would try to emulate my style, my voice, and they couldn't. And so I started scratching my own itch while I was going through treatment, and I built a tool. And that tool just became more and more robust over time. And now people buy that tool. It's called the 100-Year Copywriting Engine. And it literally has my voice, my snarkastic voice. It's a little snarky, a little sarcastic. It's got the world's best copywriters and literally trained on thousands and thousands of ads that have been done since the 1920s.
Wow. How can people get that?
Just if you go to AdZombies.com, you go to the Learn tab, and right there everything is right there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I'll make sure to check that out. Everyone listening should check that out as well. I'd like to pivot a little bit here, just because this is a question I wanted to make sure to ask you. And you can, there's kind of one or two ways you can take this. I want to ask, what is your either favorite or top performing ad that you've done for maybe these big companies or smaller companies? Is there one that sticks out that you could talk to us about?
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I hope you can't hear my dog who's like snorting in the background.
No, I can't.
Yeah, my dogs come to the office with me every day. They're very excited to go out the door and come to the office with me. And then they just sit there and make noise all day long. So my favorite, so there's a couple of them, and I'll explain why in a moment. And one of them, I think, okay, so let's start with storytelling. I like ads that tell stories, but I also like fixing broken messages. And I'll give you a little bit of a backstory on that. Companies come to me because in the branding, advertising, and marketing space, I am the guy that is a fixer. If a message is broken, if something's not working right, they come to me to fix the message. That's my area of expertise. And many, many years ago, M&M's, when they launched their custom M&Ms, the little M&Ms you can get at events where they have little things written on them and you can pick the colors of the M&Ms and the messaging, they were having trouble getting people to understand the value prop of these custom M&Ms. My M&Ms is what they're called. And they thought, okay, people know what M&Ms are. They're going to quickly understand. And they didn't. They didn't understand. No, these are custom M&Ms you can order for birthdays, weddings, bar mitzvahs, name the thing, funerals, celebration of life campaigns. So that was like, okay, how do we tell a story that helps people connect the dots to understand that these custom M&Ms are things you as a consumer can order directly from M&M's website? Like, simple. And I'll never forget, everyone was pitching all these great ideas and they had storyboards and, so understand in the advertising space, when you're working with a company, whether it's your first engagement or whatever, they put out an RFP, a request for proposal. And a lot of times they do an open pitch, right? So companies come in and they do their pitch, their presentation, and the best idea gets picked and you win. And so everybody else was doing storyboards, which I thought, God, that's so lame. We have the ability with a little bit of, and this is before AI, with Adobe, After Effects, Illustrator, Final Cut, you have all these tools that you could actually create a demo. And so I asked, I think they're called Jewels. I asked M&M's to provide some of the assets, some of the visual assets, and because I wanted to get my hands on them. And the way I pitched M&M's was I created an ad, a mock-up, and it was a 30-second mock-up. And the cool thing was watching their reaction to watching the mock-up, because it got to a point in the story where everyone in the room went like this. And I'll explain my motion after I do it. They all went like this. And what they did is they sighed. They all turned their head to the side, their mouths opened, and it was like a collective experience because I created an emotion. And so that ad is one of my favorites to date. And so what it does is it tells a love story. And so it starts off with basically a boy M&M and a girl M&M, and they meet. And from the time the ad starts to the time it ends, they meet, they date, they get engaged, he proposes, they get married, and they live happily ever after. And it's about sharing your love story with my M&Ms. And it helps people connect the dots. At the end, here's the My M&Ms website where you can go and order these custom M&Ms. That ad just gave people the right at the moment where the baby comes. And it's like, wow, like in 30 seconds, I told an entire love story through M&Ms. And it was magical. So that's definitely one of my favorites. But I have to say, honestly, I like all the stuff that I do because I love making ads that connect the dots for people.
Love that. Okay, so I've noticed that there's a heavy emphasis on emotion. There has to be some emotion that's sparked, whatever the ad is, and that's given through a story or demonstrated or connected through a story.
Danny, I can remove the story from it. I want it, and I'm sure you have females that watch and listen, and I'm sure males. I'm guessing you have more of a dominant male audience than female. Yeah. But I want to. This is why stories are impactful. I don't even have to tell a story to elicit a reaction from everyone watching or listening right now. When you see someone's foot kick a guy in the nuts, everybody does the same thing. Oh,
yeah.
Right? If you can create that with words in an ad or in emotion in a story, you've created that moment. And so I use that as like a North Star, right? How do I get them to not cringe, maybe cry, maybe they get a little teary, maybe they laugh, right? How do I move them closer to the product, the service, the offer through emotion?
Love that. Okay. That makes sense. So emotion's actually the key. That's what you have to focus on. And I was going to ask you, is there like a favorite emotion that you like to tie to, of like love or hate or anger?
People will tell you I'm a laughter first advertiser. If I can make someone laugh, that's a win for me. For years, in fact, I was just talking to one of the home service businesses, and I was having a conversation with them, with the owner of the shop. And I said, I've had this weird idea for an air conditioning ad for years, like actually a series of ads. And it was, and the ad series is air conditioning so cold, ... right? That's all you have to say. That's the message. And so what are the visuals around this? The first ad idea was a couple's running back to the home from their morning jog, and they're sweaty, and they open the door. And as soon as they open the door, they frost over and like they ice up. And I'm like, oh my God, that would be like, just create that. How cold is the air conditioning in their house? Air conditioning so cold, ... fill in the company name, right? You create a visual that creates impact that connect, and you're not having to do a lot of heavy lifting saying, watch our technician. Every ad in the advertising space for home service, whether it's pest control or HVAC, plumbing, electrical, it's the same thing. It's the technician at the door. The happy customer greets them. They spray for the bugs. They shake hands, and it's a little logo at the end or whatever, right? Or the AC technician is pointing to the thing that's broken. The homeowner nods in agreement. The thing gets fixed. The couple's relaxed, and it's done, right? There is the same version of every ad has been created 1,000 times. Why not do something different and come up with something fresh? And so like my way of thinking when I'm looking at creating an ad is, how do I tell the story that connects the consumer to the HVAC, to the plumbing, to the bug pest control shop? And so like, here's a concept that I would roll. the couple is sitting on the couch, or the woman is sitting on the couch, or the guy is sitting on the couch, and they're on their phone. And there's a Tinder-like app, and they're literally swiping through contractors. And the message there is you don't have to, waste your time swiping through, or, let's say hooking up with the wrong contractor.
Yeah.
That's how you can create an emotion, create a laugh, get that connection. And you're also at the same time selling the service, right? You're building those at-bats, those brand recognition moments. And at the same time, driving people to go, oh, that's the company I want to work with.
That's so good. And that reminds me of a quote. I forget who says this, but essentially it's people love to buy, but they hate to be sold to. And this
Yes.
ties directly into that, right? That it's not, $45 offer, get it now before it expires. It's touching into something deeper. And also I'm sure that would probably attract customers to stay for longer
Yes.
and also to not buy discount services.
Danny, I've never sold shit to anyone, but all I've done is create an emotion that makes them want the thing that they're looking at. And I like to use Nike as a perfect example of this. And if you are watching or listening to this right now, and say it out loud if you're in your car in your office by yourself, when was the last time you saw an ad where Nike put a price point on their ad?
Never.
Never. And the reason is they don't need to put a price point. They create an emotion in the consumer, and they go after the aspirational audience. If you wear these athletic sneakers, this footwear, you are going to be able to jump in the air like Michael Jordan, run like Usain Bolt, or pole vault like Joe Pole Vaulter, right? Like it's aspirational. I'm going to become a better version of myself, the athlete, if I wear these sneakers. And the reality is it doesn't do any of that. It's right. It's the return on the investment for most people is inconsequential. But the thought is that I can be that. It's the same mentality that doesn't allow people to cancel their gym memberships, even though they have a gym membership. If I cancel this, I've given up on myself, even though I haven't been to the gym in 6 months, right? Paying for it is it's the secret sauce of being the better physical me. The reality is it's not the price point, it's the emotion.
Okay. Yeah, no, and there was a story I'd like to tie to this too, which was I feel like we can pretty easily conceptualize like a Nike or an Adidas, the way they do their commercials. They're not pitching. It's all about emotion and stories like you've been talking about, that they do at a really high level, and you've helped a lot of these companies with that.
Yeah.
But at the conference we were at, and the one you spoke at, the Swarm Mastermind, someone, I won't say his name, but someone asked you, he was like, yeah, that's all great because that's like billion-dollar companies, Nike, whoever. But who cares about my pest control company in the area? I don't, and he's saying, I don't think the same things apply. I think people just want the service. They just want a good price and a lot of reviews, and that's it. So to people in home services, especially, that are skeptical of branding and building emotion and storytelling, what do you say to those people?
All right. So without calling that individual out, let's talk about that for a moment. Let's do a little deep dive on that. So one of the questions I asked him after I spoke was, we were talking, and I don't remember how many vehicles he has in his fleet, but he has quite a few. And I said, so if you don't believe in branding? He goes, no. I said, okay. Do you have your vehicles wrapped? He goes, yes. I said, how much did it cost you? And he gave me the number. So he spent quite a bit. Like, I want to say, if I remember correctly, it was like $55,000 total. If I'm making that number up based on the number of vehicles.
3 to 5K a truck.
3 to 5K a truck. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you were standing right next to me when that conversation was happening. And so I'm like, so why did you do that? He goes, well, you have to have your name and your phone number and your license number. I'm like, yeah, but you don't need a wrap for that. You can just get a magnet to put on the door. And he goes, well, it's, I want people to see us. And we're like, oh, so wait, you do believe in branding then?
Yeah.
Right. And so understanding that branding has a ton of value, because it's the thing that makes you memorable and people like instantly recall your company. And I did a little, like, I do this almost every time I speak when I'm talking about brand. I pick 3 brands that I quiz the room, because I know that every time I do it, everyone gets it right. And I ask the room, if you had hemorrhoids, what product would you go to the store and buy? And everyone shouts the same answer. Danny?
I actually don't know because I don't watch TV.
Oh, you wouldn't have known it anyway because you're too young. Preparation H. And so Preparation H, sorry about that, I had to reposition. Preparation H is the go-to. If you recall, in that room, everyone shouted out Preparation H.
Yeah.
If you had to blow your nose because you had a cold, what would you use?
Kleenex.
Which is a tissue. Tissue is not the brand. Kleenex is the brand. But Kleenex has so embedded their brand in your brain, you confuse the product for the brand name. And then the other one is, if you had a cut on your finger and had to protect it with something, what would you wrap around your finger?
Band-Aid.
Band-Aid, which is a brand of bandage. So it's branding is everything. And when your lead gen pipeline stops working or you turn it off, you want to still have sales. You want to still have at-bats. And brand is the thing that keeps you alive when lead gen isn't working or your pipeline's not right. Brand is everything. And so I believe that every business should invest. Yes, you need your lead gen, but you should also invest in your brand so that you become top of mind for the service or the product or the thing that it is you do, right? How did Stanley become all of a sudden this dominant cup company? A story about a woman, and I think the car caught fire, if I remember the story correctly. And then after the fire, she reached in and got her Stanley cup, and it was a TikTok video, and the cup still had ice in it, right? Brand recognition is so powerful. It creates a mark that consumers don't forget. And so you can do that with a home service company. You can do that with a pest control company. I dare the pest control company out there to get creative and fun with their advertising and stand out. I want to see the cockroach HOA meeting on the counter.
Yeah.
And like, that's different. That's going to grab my attention. That's the thing that's going to move me from being passive to becoming an active customer.
Love that. And also for home services, when do you think it makes sense to start investing in brand? Is it like 1 million or 5 million? And what percent of your marketing budget should go into it?
You should always be. And it doesn't even matter like how small you are. The first thing that a company does is, as soon as they have the money, is they wrap their vehicle. That's your first investment in brand, right? The second investment in brand is maybe creating some messaging that's creative and fun and drives the brand positioning. There are lots of things you do. Your shirts, your uniforms are part of brand. If your techs, if your crew are going out and they look like a bunch of slobs and everybody's wearing their own clothing, and, so somebody's got jeans, someone's wearing khakis, someone's got a blue polo, someone's got a Grateful Dead t-shirt on, right? That doesn't represent your company. You're investing in the brand so that customers know this is your company. Customers rely on you. Customers get a sense of like, this is my company, the brand that I use for this service. You should invest in brand from day one.
Love that. And for home service businesses, is there anything that they should do today? Like, would you say wrapping the trucks is the most important? Is it just like a combination of everything?
It's a combination of things, but they should be consistent. And your message needs to always be consistent with your consumer. A lot of times, and I see this a lot with small shops, they're constantly flip-flopping, or they're trying to make their USP, their unique selling proposition, part of their brand advertising message. No, it's a North Star, right? You create the North Star, your brand USP, and everything aligns to that. But you want to make sure your message is consistent, it's clear, it's understandable. You don't need to sell people on a price point. Price point is If you want to negotiate your way to the bottom, price point's a great way to do that. If you want to set yourself up as a premium service, it's not about the price. It's about the quality. It's about the experience. It's about the brand.
Love that. And I know you've also worked with some of the biggest home service companies, like I believe A1 Garage, Gettle, some of these other guys.
Yeah, I was just at Gettle last week in Las Vegas doing an entire team training on AI assisted advertising.
So yeah, what does that look like of working with a really large home service business? What works there?
What's great there is that you've got a massive team to execute on things, right? It's not just one person or two people, or maybe a part-time VA in you know some offshore. You've got an entire execution team to do things. The only difference is the zeros involved in the transactions. See, I'll never forget this conversation. My dad was friends back in the day with I want to say it was the COO or CMO, or might be the CFO of DeLorean Motors, back when DeLorean Motors was still an active, growing company. And they were going out to lunch, and my dad was sitting there in his office, in his friend's office, and he was writing a check for something. And he was just hanging out by the desk while they were talking. And he's like, wow, it's a big check. And he goes, Arnie, it's just another zero. The difference between a small company and a big company is just the amount of zeros they can put into their marketing.
Interesting. Never heard it put that way, but that really resonates with me because it's essentially the same thing no matter where you're at. So
yep. The only thing that changes is the scale.
Got it. Well, cool. We'll start to wrap up here, Ken. I've got one final question for you, which is, what is your message to the audience? What do you want to tell people, the home service owners or the agency owners or the brand experts? What do you want to tell them? What do you think they need to know?
Okay, here it is. This is going to be the simplest thing. If you are not utilizing and learning and becoming a practitioner of the AI tools that are available at your disposal, you are already dead. You literally, somebody unplugged the ventilator. The beeping is going, and you don't even hear that the beeping is slowing down. Don't resist AI. Figure out how to utilize it to your advantage. The companies that are going to win over the next 5 years, 6 years are going to be the ones that have people inside those teams that are utilizing it, that are learning how to adapt. It's going to disrupt people's jobs. It's going to change the world. Probably contribute to global warming. It's going to do a lot of things, but what it's going to do is it's going to increase your efficiency and your output, and it can become a great creative companion to help move things faster. So I beg of you, stop resisting and start investing and being curious about how these tools can move things along. It's just like, Danny, when I was demonstrating these 3 tools that I built, right? These AI tools to help people build stories in advertising, like video stuff. Those tools came out of a curiosity. They came out of a desire. Part of that was, how do I get people to be able to create content like me? How do I get people who own small businesses to have access to the level of creative, the shops, the production companies that I've done stuff with? How do I make this scalable for small business where it makes sense? And so I started pouring my knowledge into tools because I'm curious about how they work. And once you start getting curious, you are going to find that these things are incredible. Now, I will say this, and this is my final thing. If someone tells you they are an expert in AI, tell them bullshit. None of us are an expert. Not even Sam Altman is an expert in AI. We are all practitioners, and we're learning as we go. I discover new things every day. The reason is that AI adapts, it learns, it gets smarter. You can't be an expert. When they released the latest version of ChatGPT, Sam Altman was like, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. And it got stupid. Why? Because no one's an expert, right? Things went south. It didn't understand this. The context was lost. no one is an expert in AI. We are all learning. So you should learn along with everyone else who's touching AI right now.
Amen. So AI is a huge opportunity. You're, like you mentioned, you're already dead if you haven't been using it. So you need to make sure to use AI, learn AI, and then also segues into the tools that you were mentioning. So just to be clear, how can what are the tools that you have, and how can people use those?
So I created a suite of tools that the first one is StoryMaker. It literally crafts the story. You tell it what you're selling, right? Who your audience is, etc. And it writes the story and generates the needed actors. Then you output that into the actor engine. It creates the actual actor prompts, the visuals. And then it goes into my final tool, which allows the story to be generated as an ad, which you can then use with any of the digital platforms that create video today. And so I built it and I created a bundle. It's also available on that site, adzombies.com/learn. And you'll see it. It's called StoryForge. It's a whole suite of tools, and it's $99 a month because I'm always updating it and iterating and making it better. But it's a pretty amazing tool set. And when you deploy those tools, you're able to create Super Bowl level, high level creative ads for you, for your shop, for your clients.
Yeah, awesome. No, I'd recommend everyone check those out. Like I said, I was blown away by your presentation. I didn't even know this technology existed. I still thought we were like 6 to 12 months out. So yeah, definitely go check those out. And yeah, Ken, this has been a great podcast. Thank you so much for your time here. This has been incredible. And last kind of question or plug, how can people connect with you and find you on social media?
Super easy. Spanky Moskowitz. I literally lean into my nickname, and my last name is Moskowitz. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm on all the platforms, and I'm always available. I'll answer questions, DMs, shoot me a text. It's easy to find my number. I don't hide it, and I'm happy to help.
Awesome. Well, thanks again so much. All those links will be in the description, so make sure to go follow Ken on every social platform. Go check out his website. And thank you so much again for your time, Ken. This has been awesome.
Thanks, Danny. I appreciate you having me.
Of course. Hey guys, Danny Liebrand here. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Local Marketing Secrets. And if you did, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you have any key takeaways, questions, or guest recommendations, I'd love to hear them. Finally, if you're listening on podcast platforms like Spotify or Apple, please leave us a review and tell me what you think there. All right, that's all I've got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.